Good morning, everybody. Pastor Rick here, Broadman Baptist Church. This is the Broadman Word for Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. Hope you're having a marvelous day in the Lord. What a beautiful weather day we have here in Ohio. And there is so much to be happy about. I wanted to talk to you today about anger and specifically why be angry. And this is coming out of the devotional Radical Wisdom. And it makes some interesting points about anger that I wanted you to think about. You know, a lot of anger comes from anxiety, and that anxiety comes from unmet expectations usually. When people or God or circumstances don't do what you think they should, we can become anxious, and that anxiousness can lead to being unhappy, frustrated, maybe even sometimes depressed. But when something is really important to you, when something is truly failed in your view, when you would really rather demand that it happen and it doesn't, well, that can lead to anger. So, and of course, we all know angry people. Most of them have actually been angry for a long time. It might not actually have to do with as much as what might be going on right now. There is sort of an undercurrent to them. They seem to always be ready to be angry. And it's difficult to be around those folks and be positive and get anything accomplished because you never know really what's going to bring out some negativity to them, or maybe even worse, some sort of vitriol or blow up. Usually it's because there's some undercurrent, some unresolved issue that they never really got over. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to deal with anxiety in our life. Doesn't mean that we don't have to deal with anger or even angry people. We have to in order to be truly fulfilled Christians and to example Christ. These things have to be dealt with. So what we can then do is find a way to deal with it. And it lies in managing our expectations and perhaps backing off of our demands and lowering our standards of success in terms of what we think should happen. You can't make people do what you want, and you certainly can't make God do what you want. So we have to recognize that perhaps our expectations and demands are the very things that are setting us up for failure. And we need to learn to manage those expectations and demands for success. All meaningful relationships are going to be interdependent, and that means that there is a need there that has to be met. They're fueled, in essence, by the need for the relationship. And of course, a relationship that is need-based with God is a healthy thing. And expressing those needs to Him is also healthy. It's called prayer. And so expressing your needs to others is also a healthy thing. It's called fellowship or a relationship. So after we learn that, to manage our expectations and to be able to not leave any doubts about what our expectations or maybe even our needs are in a situation, there can be great progress made. But once we learn to express our needs, particularly our needs being expressed to God and then to others, then our tact, our plan of action, has to be to trust God. And then probably more importantly, to accept what comes, because whatever does happen is going to be God's will, either His expressed will or His will of omission, meaning He let it happen, but it's still His will. Having expectations then is a natural thing. We all go into situations with some sort of preconceived notions or some sort of expectations. It's what we do. Identifying them, though, for what they are and processing them to sort out what might be okay, what might be unrealistic, and then what might be selfish or even just completely over the top. That management process right there is key to a couple of things: spiritual maturity and success in terms of working with others and working with the world to further the purposes of the kingdom. Once we get that maturity level to kick in, and when we can start to relinquish the expectations that are probably not realistic, and especially the ones that are sort of demanding and selfish, and in turn accept what God wants in the situation and what God wants us to have, then we can start to experience a whole lot of peace and contentment and personal success in our relationship with God and our relationship with others. And the whole goal then is for God's good purposes for you in the kingdom, to move the kingdom forward, to spiritually fulfill you and make you an effective and content Christian, can happen. But as long as we keep relying on our expectations and our view of those expectations, and not including this introspection that I talked about and that management that I talked about, well, then anxiety is bound to be the rule of the day, and some of that anxiety is just going to become anger, and you may eventually actually end up being an angry person. And of course, none of us want that to happen. So listen, spend some time thinking about this today. Try to make sure that you're at least headed in the direction of being able to manage your expectations realistically, and more importantly, that you're able to be at peace with God in what He decides in the situation, and not let that be a source of anxiety or anger. Hey, I love you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next time.